What books comprise the Orthodox Bible canon? I would like to give you a direct answer to this question today. Now, this video will not be exhaustive going into every single detail of the question, but it will be a primer on how Orthodox Christians approach this question and give you a good overview of the Bible canon for Orthodox Christianity. In the future, I plan on uploading videos which go into much more detail on each aspect of this question. I'll be going into councils and canons and manuscripts and scholars and all sorts of things. Years of research that I'll be putting together for you so that you can find yourself in a good place on this topic. You don't want to miss it, so hit that subscribe button for future content on the Bible canon in Orthodox Christianity, and that like button if you find this video helpful. Without any further ado, let's get right into it. So where is the Orthodox Bible canon? The answer to that question is that the Bible canon is in the Orthodox Church's tradition. Now, that begs a follow-up question. How do you know which books are in that tradition? And the answer is not as simple as what many people would like. But you have to be careful not to mistake simplicity or lack of simplicity with a problem or an epistemic issue. The tradition holds information about what books comprise the Orthodox scriptures. And it does take a little bit of legwork to draw that information out of the tradition. But we are not left in ignorance about what books are in the scriptures according to tradition. We have expressions of that tradition in our councils, in our canons, in our services, in the church fathers, all over the place. And all of these are expressions and outpourings of our sacred tradition. So when asking the question, what is the Orthodox Bible canon, we need to look at all of these things and consider all of them. What books are the councils quoting as scriptures? What books are the councils listing as scriptures? What books are the fathers quoting as scriptures? What books are being read from in the church as scriptures? And so on. All of these things must be considered and be put together. You can't take one list from one father and one list from one council and one manuscript and pit them against each other. All of these are outpourings of our tradition and need to be taken holistically. Now on the screen, I have a Venn diagram with 3 rings, and each ring represents one of the expressions of our sacred tradition from which you can draw knowledge about what books are in the Orthodox scriptures. In the first ring, I have Orthodox canon law. Now, canon law refers to the canons from local and ecumenical councils that have been ratified and gathered together. This would include, for example, all of the canons that were ratified at the 6th Ecumenical Council for the Orthodox Church. The second ring represents the church fathers, the patristic consensus on which books are being listed, quoted from, and treated as scriptures. Note how I don't have lists alone, but I also include their quotations, because not every father left a list of books. Some of them are using books as scripture, and they never provided a list at all. Some fathers provide multiple lists which don't agree. So we need to take all of these things holistically within the fathers to understand what is the consensus of what books they treated and used as scriptures. And then the third ring is which books are in the Septuagint, or better to say more accurately, which books are understood to comprise the Septuagint in the apostolic and early Christian age. There are multiple witnesses to this. For example, the Hexapla, which was compiled and edited by Origen of Alexandria. We know what books were in his Septuagint column through the Syro-Hexapla manuscript tradition. So we can understand what books Origen of Alexandria understood to comprise the Septuagint through the Syro-Hexapla. We also have Cassiodorus, who reports to us which books were in the Septuagint. And we have the Council of Carthage in 419, which ratified a list of books. And scholars like Dr. Henry Sweet will acknowledge that as a representation of which books were traditionally held to comprise the Septuagint. So we have information about what books are comprised into the traditional Orthodox Old Testament in the Septuagint. That's valuable information from our tradition as well. So these 3 rings are what I consider to be probably the primary sources of information about what our tradition is holding on the question of the Bible canon. There are other expressions of our tradition as well, like the lectionaries of the church, which books are being read from in the services. but I would consider these to be probably the clearest indicators. Now, I put them in a Venn diagram because I really want to drive home that these three sources of information from our tradition are not in contradiction to one another. They're very much witnessing the same tradition. Now, each one of these approaches has its pros and cons. Canon law comes with its difficulties on interpretation. The Fathers comes with its difficulties on interpretation. The Septuagint comes with its difficulties on the manuscript tradition and the history of the Septuagint. But all of these together, I think, make a three-stringed braid that's a very strong and clear witness to the books that comprise the Orthodox Bible canon. So I'm going to go through each book one by one and place them in the Venn diagram. Hopefully at the end you'll see that these three outpourings of our tradition are really in agreement on what books comprise the Orthodox Bible canon and are all pointing to the same traditional Bible canon. So in the first place, of course, we have the books of Moses. There are 5 books of the Pentateuch, and those are agreed upon everywhere in our canon law. Quotes the Fathers and Septuagint as being a part of the Bible. There's just no question whatsoever about these 5 books. So I'm going to put these right in the middle. We have these in lists from the Apostolic Canons, Canon 85. We have this in the Council of Carthage. We have this listed by every single father, and then every single witness of the Septuagint includes these as well. There's no question about it. A similar situation with Joshua is very well attested to. Judges is very well attested to, and Ruth. These first 8 books of the Bible make up the Octateuch. Then we have the 4 books of Kingdoms, which is 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings. Those are all attested to in every single one of these witnesses of our tradition. There are 2 books of Chronicles, which are attested to in all of these 3 witnesses of our tradition. Now, all of these also attest to 2 books of Esdras. Now, there is some dispute about what these 2 books of Esdras are. Is this Ezra and Nehemiah, or is this first Esdras, Ezra and Nehemiah? Either way, all 3 of these witnesses are clear that there are 2 books of Esdras which are canonical. So in a future video, I'll be exploring the books of Esdras in detail. But in general, we are very clear in our tradition that 2 books of Esdras are canonical in our church. Now, Tobit and Judith are both witnessed in the canon law through the Council of Carthage. They are quoted from and listed by certain fathers like St. Augustine. And they are included in the Septuagint witnesses like the Syro-Hexapla and the Great Uncials, and are listed by Cassiodorus and so on. So these books actually belong in the middle. Now, not every single father listed them, not every single canon lists them, but they are in at least one father and treated as scriptures by at least one father. They are listed in the canon law. So they do belong in the middle because they are witnessed in all 3 of these witnesses of our tradition. Same with Esther, a very similar situation, not in everybody's list, but it is witnessed through the consensus of all 3 of these legs of our tradition. Next is Job. There's no question about the canonicity of Job. There's no question about the canonicity of Psalms. All 3 books of Solomon are well attested to. Now, the wisdom of Solomon is witnessed in our canon law. It's quoted from and used by the fathers as scripture, and it's included in our Septuagint witnesses. So our tradition does contain Wisdom of Solomon as a book of scripture. Same situation with the Wisdom of Sirach. You'll find this listed in the Council of Carthage, which was ratified at the 6th Ecumenical Council. You'll find this included in certain lists and quoted from by the fathers as scriptures. And then you'll find it in the majority of Septuagint witnesses. Isaiah is very well attested to. There's no question about that book. Now, Jeremiah is unquestionably canonical, but in the Orthodox tradition, Jeremiah includes in one corpus the book of Jeremiah, Lamentations, Baruch, and the Epistle of Jeremiah. So we need to keep in mind that when patristic lists list Jeremiah, it's including Baruch and the Epistle of Jeremiah in that. And we can really prove that with the manuscript traditions in our Septuagint tradition. So you have the Great Uncials and the Syro-Hexapla, which show that the Jeremiah corpus includes Baruch and the Epistle of Jeremiah. So all of those are received by the Orthodox Church as canonical together within the book of Jeremiah. Ezekiel is canonical without any questions asked. It's included all three of these. Daniel is canonical, no questions asked. And similar to Jeremiah, Daniel in the Septuagint tradition shows that Susanna and Bel and the Dragon are included in Daniel as one book. So that the Orthodox Church would receive those as one book together. So we don't see Susanna and Bel and the Dragon as second books. We see them as parts of the book of Daniel. The 12 prophets, that would include all of your so-called minor prophets, those are unquestionably canonical as well. First and second Maccabees are included in the Council of Carthage. That would be here in the Orthodox canon law. They are listed by certain fathers in their list, and they are quoted from as scriptures by a number of fathers, and they are in the majority of witnesses for the Septuagint tradition. So this actually stands here in the middle, witnessed by all three aspects of our tradition. Now, third Maccabees is a little bit more difficult to pin down, so let's talk about it a little bit. So third Maccabees is quoted from and used as scripture by some of the fathers, but it is a little bit rare. It is ratified in Canon 85 of the Apostolic Canons. However, that canon only calls the books in that list holy and venerable. It doesn't call them canonical or divinely inspired. So that's something important to keep in mind. But it does list it along with the other books of scripture. So it might be worth considering it, at least in the blue ring. The manuscript witnesses and the witnesses of the corpus of the Septuagint is also weak for third Maccabees. It's not listed in Cassiodorus, and it doesn't seem like it was featured in the Hexapla, but it is found in Codex Alexandrinus, and it may have at one point been in Codex Sinaiticus. So you can put it either here because it's used by some fathers, or you could put it perhaps here because it's included in Orthodox canon law. But either way, it's not going to have the strongest witness of our three facets of our tradition. I would probably put it here because I think even the fathers that were quoting from it didn't necessarily include it on the same level as all of these books. Fourth Maccabees has an even weaker status. It's included in Codex Alexandrinus. It wasn't treated as scripture per se by any of the fathers, and it wasn't included in any of the ratified lists for canon law. So that would stay excluded entirely from these three witnesses. Second Esdras is quoted now and again by the fathers. I know St. Athanasius quotes from it, but it's not included in any ratified list of canon law. And I think it's found in Codex Sinaiticus, otherwise excluded from all witnesses of the Septuagint. So relatively weak there. The Book of Enoch is not featured in any of the lists ratified for our canon law. It's not included in any of the Septuagint witnesses as far as I know. Maybe one or two max. And then I think it is referenced by some early Christians, so I will put it there. And the New Testament is ratified in many of these. We have the fathers are using all 27 books of the New Testament as scripture. It's included in the Council of Carthage, all 27 books. And, well, of course, the Septuagint does not contain the New Testament because the Septuagint is only the Old Testament, so it has to be in this category. But certainly the Orthodox would receive all 27 books of the New Testament as canonical. So what you're seeing on the screen right now is the witnesses of our tradition. You will notice right away that there is not a large amount of disagreement with these witnesses, and you can have a lot of confidence that those books in that middle intersection between all three rings are absolutely scriptures for the Orthodox Christian Church. And there's really no disputes about that. You cannot say that any one of those is not included in our Bible without stepping on the toes of one of these great witnesses of our tradition. Now, of course, certain Orthodox Christians will take certain books and put them in tiers, and they'll debate about what those tiers mean and what what they rank or whatever. But as far as the corpus of scriptures that comprise the Orthodox Bible, there is no disagreement on that middle section. Those are going to be the books of the Orthodox Bible. There's just no question about it. So that's an overview of how Orthodox Christians would generally approach the canon question. It's a little bit more complicated than Catholics might have. They can just go to a list from one of their councils, or Protestants just, they share their own Protestant tradition from which they get the Bible canon. The Orthodox Church has a long history with a lot of complexity and richness. It doesn't mean that we're left in the dark about which books are in the Bible. We can know which books are in the Bible through the witnesses of our sacred tradition. Now, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, because like I said, I'll be going into detail on different aspects of the Bible canon in the future, in future videos. If you have any questions, leave a comment below. I love hearing from you. Hit that like button if you found this helpful. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.